Hey, Jason here from Couch to Camino, and I want to take this moment to do this first video blog to talk a little bit about what the Camino is. Um, I've been talking a little bit about training and getting ready for this walk, but really, what is the Camino, and and what's it all about? So, what I thought I'd do is maybe give a little primer on some important terms of the Camino, as I understand them, and some sort of idea so you have a frame of reference. So, the first thing we need to talk about is what the Camino is. The Camino is a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. And if you're Spanish and you're out there and I said that wrong, absolutely comment on that. As you know already, my Spanish is atrocious. So I'm just really glad I didn't put the word taco in there somewhere. So the Camino is a pilgrimage to Santiago, which is said to hold the remains of St. James. So the big thing about the Camino is there are many paths. The traditional path is the Camino Francis, and this is about a month's worth of walking from southern France over the Pyrenees into Spain. Like I said, about 800 kilometers, thereabouts. I'm a lazy fat man, so I like to focus a little bit more on the Camino Ingles, which is the traditional English way, and translates as English way, coming from much, much closer, about a 5-day walk, about 100 kilometers. Either way, the Camino itself is a pilgrimage. People do it for spiritual reasons, religious reasons, just for their own reasons. I think that's what kind of attracts me to this, is that it pulls people from all over to make this walk for whatever their reasons are, and I think it's a very personal thing. Obviously, I have my own reasons, but so that's the Camino itself. And that's just really in a nutshell what we're talking about. But the Camino's been going on for over 1,000 years. This year actually marks the 800th anniversary of St. Francis of Assisi making the pilgrimage, and I'll talk a little bit later on about there's a separate certificate that can be received only this year because of that, so which I'm really excited about. Interesting that it turned out that way. So that's in a nutshell what the Camino is. So let's talk a little bit about some of the symbology of the Camino, and I'm not sure I said that right, but it's not Spanish, so it's on me. The pilgrims, the peregrinos who take part on the pilgrimage, are usually identified by a couple of things: a staff or a walking stick of some sort, and also one of these, which is a scallop shell. And the reason for that is when the first pilgrims would go to Santiago, Spain was considered the end of the known world. And so the pilgrims would go all the way to the coast and around Finisterre, right on the Spanish coast, and that would demonstrate that they had been to the edge of the world at that point. So they would come back with the scallop shell, showing that they'd been there. Scallop shell is also one of the symbols for baptism. I found that out from my minister friend, John Mark. So the pilgrims would also use this, as a dish, to take water, things like that. So somewhat practical. It's usually seen with the Cross of St. James, which is a specialized red cross, which you'll see a little bit later on as we go. But pilgrims will normally wear this around their necks, on their bags, on their staff, somewhat that denotes them as a pilgrim. Although I suspect if you are a large man walking around with a backpack in northern Spain, you're either a pilgrim or a vagrant. So, So the scallop shell. Let's see, what's next? The credentials. So the way the pilgrimage works is the pilgrims start out from wherever they're starting, traditionally your front door, or when you first set foot in France or in Spain, wherever your starting point is. You have to keep track before you get to Santiago, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you have what's called a pilgrim's passport or credencials. Again, so sorry for my Spanish friends. And basically what this is, I like to think of it as a spiritual passport, or just a travel passport. And this one I got in Dublin, especially for this because for me, I started my walk in Dublin earlier this year. But basically, they'll all look the same. Some will fold out. The ones you typically get there fold out. But this one has areas where you get stamps or cellos. And I know I botched that. Like you can see here, I have 2 stamps on here already from the Guinness Distillery at St. James Gate in Dublin, which is the traditional place where the Irish pilgrims would meet before they'd head over to start the Camino. And so to this day at the Guinness Storehouse, they still stamp them. So you can see Bacchus, which is appropriate. Then they had a second stamp for the Irish Society of the Friends of St. James. And I believe I just now noticed that the lovely woman stamped it upside down. I have a sacrilegious cello right here. So anyway, as I go through every day on the trip, you get a stamp. Now, because I'm only traveling 100 kilometers for the Camino Ingles, I have to get 2 stamps a day, or 2 cellos. And they can be from the hotel I'm staying at, a bar, a church, any sort of important place along the way, but I need 2 of them a day. Travelers who are coming from farther out, from France or other places, may only need 1 a day. These are important for a couple of reasons. When you're finished with the passport, you go to the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela, and they will give you a certificate of Compostela as long as you have enough stamps and you've demonstrated how far you've gone. You've gone at least 100 kilometers. It should be of no surprise to any of my friends, I'm of course doing the bare minimum. So the stamps help you in that respect. This is the main thing. When you go, you get your certificate, and it's either a spiritual certificate for religious reasons or just a certificate of completion. But that's, you have to have this passport. You get your final stamp there, and that demonstrates that you've made the walk, you've made the pilgrimage. The other thing is there are certain hostels for pilgrims called albergues, and there are refugios where, especially the albergues, they will not necessarily let you in unless you can demonstrate that you're a pilgrim. Again, remember what I talked about: shell, pilgrim; no shell, vagrant. So the stamp, the passport's also important. You're getting your cello there, but if you show up and you don't have any stamps, go down to the Motel 6. This is for people who are making the walk. And those are typically, made at a reduced rate or free donation. A lot of them seem at a set price. But that kind of speaks a lot to the Camino itself, that there are organized albergues and places to stay along the way and have been for hundreds of years. So, the area is really based around this idea. They accept this idea. So, the Pilgrim's Passport, huge, huge. If after watching this you haven't learned your lesson and you want to take your own Camino, one of the first things you'll do is you'll want to get a passport. And you could either get, order a passport, which I had done originally. You can, there are organizations in different countries where they will sell them to you, or you can get them when you get there. But it was really important to me. I wanted one in Dublin, again, because I was in Dublin earlier this year, and I thought it was appropriate that I would start it in Dublin at the Guinness Storehouse, because who doesn't like Guinness? So, okay, so we talked about the passport, we talked about shells, we talked about vagrancy. The other thing is the staff. Now, this is a problem because there's a big discussion online all the time among pilgrims as to whether or not you want a staff or walking sticks. And walking sticks seem to be better, but staffs look, honestly, they're pilgrim chic. They look cool. But the poles, the walking sticks or poles, seem to help you a little bit better. I'm going to go for the staff, not for the cool factor, although Lord knows I need that, but because I just don't feel there's a way for me to transfer the walking sticks over. I can't use them in carry-on, and I desperately want to carry on my bag instead of check it. Had some experiences with that, and I'm not taking a lot with me, but I want to make sure that everything gets there. So right now my plan is, when I arrive, to get a walking stick when I'm there, walk with it, and then my plan is to duct tape it to my bag, and then check that on the way back, because at that point I'm fine. and just hope that it makes it back in one piece. But that's kind of my plan. So, oh yes, and the last thing we were talking about the shell, and I'll talk in another podcast or a video blog about my bag when I'm taking. But this is my backpack, and on the backpack I have a patch for the American Pilgrims on the Camino. There's the American organization. There's large ones in Canada, obviously in Spain, Canada, America, and Ireland and England. So this is the patch for the American Pilgrims. You can see in the middle, and this is the non-sacrilegious, not upside down cross of St. James on the shell. And then this on the other side. The yellow arrow is another common symbol. The way markers along the way, horrible grammar, will show the route, and there'll either be a shell of some sort, usually blue and yellow and blue, and or there will be a yellow arrow. These are both very common symbols of the Camino itself. So anyway, so I've got those on there as well. So people, again, don't stone me as a vagrant. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what we're talking about. The pilgrim is someone who, you can bike or ride a horse. You have to do double the amount of time. I'm just all about the Cliff Notes version of this first time out. So yeah, I'm gonna walk it. And again, the traditional Camino, when people talk about the Camino de Santiago, typically they're talking about the Camino Francis, which is the one obviously surprisingly from France, or the Camino Portuguese, other ways to get there. You're getting up every morning very early, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, and you'll see this hopefully as I get on the Camino. My plan is to show one of these every morning or throughout the day, and then upload them when I can. But you get up fairly early, and you're walking. There are villages in between, or areas in between. And, some people who are doing the longer routes, they camp. My plan is to start out in fairly nice, non-swanky, but fairly nice hotels along the way. And then there'll be a 3 or 4 day stretch where I'll be relying on hostels or albergues to stay. And because of that, because I'm not planning on sleeping outside, because does this look like an outdoorsman? No. I'm kind of locked into where I'm going. There are certain towns that I'm going to have to hit every day in order to get to a place that, in one case, in one stretch, do even have water. So basically, it's pretty well laid out on these how far you go and what's available. And there's a lot of documentation that's really, really awesome out there. The Confraternity of St. James online, absolutely great resource. There are step-by-step instructions on where to go. But anyway, so you're talking about walking. I think anywhere between 16 to 30 kilometers a day, which, notice how blasé I am right now, sitting in the comfort and the air conditioning of my home. I'm sure it will be different when it's 6 in the morning in Spain and the temperature will be about 99 degrees. What could possibly go wrong? So we're talking about walking from place to place, making it from albergue to albergue, or hostel to albergue, every day. And so this is what the pilgrims do. So it's very common for pilgrims to start out in small groups or by themselves on the larger routes to run into lots of pilgrims. On this route that I'm going on, it's not as well used. There are people on it. It's not completely devoid of any of that, but it's not as well run, which I'm kind of excited about as well. It's more of a personal time. As I get closer to Santiago, everything points to the fact there'll be more pilgrims as all the paths converge. That is actually something else. When you look at this shell, as I, non-Spielberg, put my hand in front of the camera, look at the shell. The other reason the shell is said to be a symbol of it, and I'm sure it's one of the things that they came up with afterwards, is that all of these different ridges kind of meet in the middle here. And one of the things it said is that these are all the different ways to get to Santiago, and everyone meets in the middle, which I thought was kind of cool and kind of a, hey, let's come up with another symbol for, another reason for this. But that's the idea. As we get closer to Santiago, we'll all kind of come together. So, yeah, my particular path shouldn't be very well tread. Pilgrims on it say that they may not run into another pilgrim the entire time. The other thing that's interesting about my particular timing, and the reason I really wanted to do this now, is that the Feast of St. James is on the 25th of July. And that is a huge, huge Spanish holiday. It's a huge holiday in Santiago especially. It is said that the King of Spain or the Queen of Spain or regent, emissaries from Rome, the Pope has come. This is a really big deal. And so my other hope is, I've worked extra days in, is that I will be there in time, a day or so at least beforehand, to be there for the Feast of St. James. So that will add to the number of pilgrims on the route. And there should be a lot of pilgrims in town. So it should be a really exciting time. I absolutely will get pickpocketed. There's just no question. There's no question. I'm hoping I don't get pilgrim shanked, but that's always a possibility. I mean, look at me. I look like a target. But it should be, all joking aside, this is going to be a pilgrimage in the truest sense of the word. It's taking very little. It's putting yourself out there. It's removing yourself from a lot of your normal world. And whether you are religious or not, and whether you're spiritual or not, and I am, this promises to be a special, potentially once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. So, it's not just a walk. It's not just a hike. It's not just anything. I think it's everything. It's all those things together. So anyway, I'm blabbering on. That's my first video blog. I hope this helps. I hope this kind of gives you some context. I hope I haven't talked too quickly. I hope Mom doesn't see it because I don't think I did my hair and I look terrible. I'm sure I'll hear about that from a lot of people. Yeah. But anyway, so this is the first one, and I'll see you soon. Next one, we'll be talking a little bit about how the training is going and what I'm taking with me, things like that. So hope this helps. Bye-bye.